Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. Andy?
Yes?
I think we should start right now and tell the people where we're from.
Okay, where are we from?
This is The Next Reel on rashpixel.fm, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hey, hey, hey.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, we're kicking off our Harold Ramis series with the 1980 golf classic Caddyshack. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you've ever played 36 holes on it, then gotten stoned to the bejesus belt that night on it, you're the sort of looper who should join us on The Next Reel's Instagram, hashtag ponyprize, hashtag guess the movie challenge.
And for that, let's head over to Scotland to tune in with Stephen Smart in the land where golf came from.
Hey guys, this week's movie was Wild River from 1960, directed by Elia Kazan and starring Montgomery Clift and Lee Remick. This week's winner was at Fegfay, who got it on MH6 and is entered into the Pony Prize hat. As always, a new challenge starts Friday, so thanks guys and see you later.
So I got this press release a little
Did
bit
you?
ago, Pete. Yeah, I did. About a film that is at AFM, or was just out at AFM, the American Film Market, looking for distribution. And I read it because I like to read these when I get them. And it is about this horror movie that's being billed as a survival horror-mentary called I Am Alone that actually really piqued my curiosity. One, because it's a zombie movie. We love zombie movies.
We love zombie movies.
Two, because it's a found footage film, and I really enjoy found footage films. I think there's some really interesting things that people can do with those. And three, because it happened to be filmed in the town where I was born. So,
Andy.
So it really piqued my curiosity to the point where I said, hey, what if we actually interviewed these filmmakers for the show?
Did we do that?
We did.
How did we do?
I think we did pretty good.
Oh, man, I'd like to hear that.
Well, luckily, Pete, we actually recorded it. So,
Wow.
Yes, we interviewed director Robert Palmer and producer Michael Weiss, and they had a great many wonderful things to say about their fun little horror-mentary, I Am Alone. And let's say we actually tune into that.
Like right now?
Like right now, what do you think?
I'm going to just start pushing buttons and hope it plays.
Well, that's what you do every week, Pete, so it's no different.
I'm Robert Palmer, one of the creators of I Am Alone.
And I'm Mike Weiss. I'm the producer of I Am Alone.
And we're the head. We're like a two-headed monster.
Yeah, kind of doing every job.
I was reading the credits as I finished watching the movie, and I noticed that. I noticed the head.
Yeah, we tried to get creative with some of the credits, so it just looked like it was always me and Rob. There's some fake names in there.
I was noticing that, and some you actually copped to. Who was the dude who says, this is a fake name? We know this already. As if you were ready for somebody to call you out.
We had a release. I actually went through all the releases and we had like over 269 extras, over 300 people involved. And I had to go through them manually, and I saw it, and I'm like, clearly that's a fake name. So, like, we just owned it. We were like, if he's not going to give us a real name, we'll call him out. He'll get a laugh, and somebody else will get a laugh.
You are making a movie here that is, man, it's right in my wheelhouse. You guys making a low-budget film. This was a Kickstarter project, not a blockbuster Hollywood budget. And I'm watching these credits, these previously mentioned credits, and there are a ton of people. This is not your indie romance fare starring, 4 people and one of them is your mom. What possibly could have overtaken you to think that this is the project you should take on?
That's a very good question for us. I have a reality TV background. We both do, but I'm still a reality TV producer.
I'm a commercial editor.
So over the years, Michael and I, we've been working on our own sort of paths. We've been friends since 8th grade. And we've been working on our own projects, and we still write together. We've written over like almost, I think, a dozen screenplays together. The original concept was like a $5,000 film we were going to like shoot in the woods, like as bare bones as we could be. And we realized like we have potential to tell a very unique story.
Yeah, a bigger story.
The found footage camera aspect of it certainly has kind of been a unique trend to integrate into the horror genre in the past decade or so, and even longer, really, if you look back at the history of it.
Cannibal Holocaust is probably like
right.
the first credited found footage film, which that controversy was great for that film, but it's a little hard now in 2015.
It's an interesting way to tell a story, but it has been really played since Blair Witch kind of reintroduced it, I guess you could say, to so many film viewers in the last 10, 15 years. What was it about that aspect of telling your horror story here that you thought you could take on and do something really unique with?
Well, I think the cameras, first and foremost, gave us great angles, great shot setups. And we knew we were going to try to go into the forest and try to go deep in there. So we decided against bigger cameras like the Red or the Alexa, and just went with kind of small GoPros. We shot on a bunch of GoPros, and we did some testing, day and night testing. So we knew that these GoPros could give us the same look that we were looking for from a more expensive camera. And also, they helped out with the budget too, because that was very nice.
Were these the only cameras you shot on? It looked like he was trucking around with a little Canon or a Sony or something too for some of the night stuff. Or
we had a Canon X8 20, just like a little prosumer camera. I think I want to say the Paranormal Activity guys shot with the 10. Yeah, they shot with the version before ours, but. We ended up one of those.
We ended up using 7 different types of cameras throughout the movie by design. So there were iPhone cameras, GoPros, the X820. Our Adrian Sarkowski, our DP, he brought in his GH2. We had a Sony, another Sony camera that we needed. We knew the world could be gritty. We knew that a world that we were creating didn't need to look as pristine. Now, we know the cameras we used have limitations, but if you're watching the film and, it all pays off, you're never going to think about the different types of cameras. I mean, we saw Sicario, and obviously they probably did some visual effects, but they did night vision, and it looked grainy and choppy, and that's a $40 million film. So we knew we had some leverage to tell this, Kickstarter film. And, sort of in the grand scheme of things, our whole idea was to tell a story from one person. So we knew we didn't need all these different cameras and all these different things.
Well, and the conceit of it actually sets it up really well. How much thought did you put into building sort of the internal rule set of how you choose where the cameras are going to be set up?
We had to put a lot of thought. It was all in the planning, for the town sequences that we did. The city of Montrose, which we love them to death, they closed Main Street for us. They gave us it was at our discretion to shoot for a few days, which is amazing for us. So we knew that with our limited time, we had to know exactly where things were going to fall. Now, they did change a little bit, of course. The sun dictated, the weather dictated, but we always knew all right, if we're doing security cams, it has to be, elevated. It has to sort of look generic. Sort of the grand scheme was we never wanted to feel like the cameras were placed there on purpose. So if you're, we were in Centennial Plaza, the big square where we saw 100 people. It was clear we just needed wide shots to show everything, and then we had our characters in the midst of the chaos to give us our close-ups.
It was a really nice way to tell it, and I thought it actually integrated well into the story, particularly the way that that our lead character, Gareth's character, ends up kind of becoming kind of a key element in the I guess the reveal that we find out from the room with Dr. Marlowe and Mason as they're kind of having their conversations. And I thought it was so much fun actually seeing a character like Jacob as he's kind of going through his transformation over the course of the film, or at least toward the latter half of it, while he's filming. It actually ended up being a really interesting way to integrate the found footage camera usage into your story, and I liked that quite a bit.
Yeah, I want to echo that, Andy, because and just this specific point, because it's really struck with me over the last 2 days. It's this idea that the found footage and the narrative itself really, I think, work well together. The fact that he has such a slow burn, sort of a time release conversion, allows him to film longer. And I think that worked really well.
Well, that was the thing. When you said rules, one of the things that Michael and I set out to do was, we knew there was a gluttony of zombie films, but we also knew there was a limited amount of zombie films that dealt with like an actual personal story. So for us, it was like, how long and how realistic can we prolong this guy's death? If he is or isn't the cure, is the doctor's job to figure out. It's our job as the creators to sort of let you go on this journey. And his mindset, he doesn't know. The whole point of the movie, spoiler alert, is that he doesn't know what's happening, so he's doing what he was trained to do. What he's been doing is shoot his show. He thinks he did something bad, but he doesn't know that the world around him is falling apart. He knows there's things happening. So it was really an interesting thing for us to sort of develop with Gareth and with Gunnar, because Gunnar had to tell a different story. Gunnar was locked in a room. He was alone in the room. Gareth was alone in the mountains. There was this dichotomy that we were trying to get across, and I think we did a really good job.
Yeah, it's that agoraphobia, sort of claustrophobia. We're scared for both of them for the exact opposite reason.
Yes, that was exactly what we did, and we had to build that room in the San Fernando Valley, and we shot 2/3 of it on a mountain in Montrose at 10,000 feet. I mean that was a challenge.
It's crazy.
Challenge in itself.
We gotta talk about Montrose.
They opened their doors to us. We had our friends, and we got friends and family. We came there with like this ragtag crew, and we ended up, we love. There's so many friends of ours now that live in that town. It was amazing.
Well, and I saw in the press release that there was an 80-year-old grandmother who was cooking for you guys every night. So it's clearly a town that really was supportive of you guys.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. The way it all kind of fell in the place was like I was playing softball out here, and me and Michael had written the script and didn't have a location. We just wrote sort of, there's a cabin on a mountain.
Figure we find a mountain somewhere.
And then
randomly stumble on.
Randomly, I asked one of my buddies, who is our good friend of ours, Chase and Bean, and he's like, my family have property in Colorado. And he literally showed us 10 pictures, and we had never seen it. I had never seen it. Michael wasn't there, and I was like, we need to go to this place. And we went in 2012, and we're like, holy Lord, like, we can do this. Like, this is actually a feasible thing. And and they allowed us to live there. And the Leonard Bean family were just amazing to help us out in the town itself. So
you lived in the cabin where we close?
The crew did.
The crew did, yeah.
You destroyed that place. That was great.
The crew lived there. We gave that to the crew.
Yeah,
Michael and I, somebody donated a pop-up camper. So I don't know if you can see it, but you can see. But it was so cold at night. I'm not an outdoorsy person of all things. And it got to like 35 degrees at night, and the heater, we couldn't run the generator. So we were sleeping like maybe 3 hours a night for like the first 10 days. It was brutal. It was great.
Yeah, it was all generator powered. You had an outhouse, lovely outhouse.
Yeah, with the hornets in there.
Yeah.
And no one got hurt, no one got sick, but we realized a few days in, like, we are in a very precarious situation on a mountain. Like, it was 20 minutes up this dirt road and about 25 minutes out of town. So
what we knew is that if the crew wanted to leave, they were kind of stuck. That's what we knew.
so they can get off the mountain. It was just going to be a big pain in the butt. So we love our cast and crew. I mean, Gareth flew something like 28 hours from Wales. He flew, I think he took a train from Wales to London, through London to Heathrow to Toronto, then to Denver, and then drove 6 hours to Montrose to do rehearsals the next day. And he killed it. I mean,
he did. Cow. He was great. He was the most annoying reality TV survivalist, and he grew into a really endearing, infected zombie creature. I loved his transformation. He was great.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing is, it was this, how do we unravel this mystery? If things are happening in the town, Gareth, we want to feel for Jacob, for Gareth. And, Gunnar is sort of the everyday man, trying to run through, trying to figure it out and get to his friend. I mean, at the end of the day, this movie is about friendship and amongst other things. Like, what would you do in this situation? And then we had our Dr. Marlowe, who by design is sort of detached from the footage. He's got a job to do. He's got to unravel this insanity, and the world around him is literally this old bunker is falling apart. I mean, half the stuff we found at like flea markets and dressed the set and painted it ourselves, Yeah,
I was noticing, and it actually made me question. It made me question your intention on setting when we're working with very clearly a video cassette player and a dot matrix printer in that room. It actually made me question when this thing was set. Was that intentional?
Well, it was only intentional to make the room feel dated. Like if you analyze the room, and Michael and I love to sort of lay little subtle references. Like the poster in the corner from one of the cameras is in the 50s. I think in the 50s there was those underground bunkers were specifically set up by, and I'm blanking on the name of the government organization. Remember the poster? They set it up, so we dressed it as like if the room just stopped working in the 60s or in the 80s. So
yeah, it was an underground bunker that hadn't been used in 20, 30 years. So what would happen when you turn it on? What would be there?
Right, so it was like they retrofit things. So there was like a mix back, because there were like computer screens. Like, was it storage? Was it not? It was all sort of to show that this room had a life at some point. Like the picture frames were like painted over, so you could tell there was something there, but now there's nothing. So we wanted to give it some life of its own. The map in the corner was those old style like Dr. Strangelove maps. So we wanted to it was key for us to show sort of such a different environment. Again, it was that dichotomy of like the expanse of the wilderness and Gareth being center frame, and this sort of like isolated room, and Gunnar, our Mason character, just sort of fighting, not understanding what's happening. Why are these things happening to him, and why can't I help? Like, I can help go get him. I don't feel like I'm useful. And then but that was also for us by design, because we got a sequel plan. So
there you awesome go. That was on my list. Can you talk a little bit? Walk us through the timeline of production. Obviously we're very interested in the Kickstarter element. There's obviously Kickstarter sort of gestalt, but hearing how well it worked for you guys, if you could reflect on just how long it took you from when you had the idea to getting this thing written and funded and produced.
I gotta tell you, we had a little trouble with Kickstarter. In 2012, we did our first Kickstarter campaign. We actually ended up doing two. The first one failed.
15 grand. Only.
Yeah, it failed at 15 grand. We were asking the same. We were asking about 25, I believe.
Yeah.
And we kind of realized at that point that we needed to do something a little bit more than just Rob and I. So we kind of got together a team of people, and then we promoted for like a whole month. We actually spent a year preparing to relaunch the Kickstarter in 2013. So if the Kickstarter failed, we couldn't make the movie at all. But we had things lined up. If it succeeded, we had a few things lined up after it. We kind of got everybody together. We got the notion that we wanted to call like all around the world, call for sponsorships.
Yeah, we had sponsors. Northside Shoes donated something like 72 pairs of shoes. Zippo, for the whole cast and crew. Zippo Lighters gave us stuff.
Yeah.
We were pulling. There was a company somewhere in Colorado donated bottles of water. A company eventually in Montrose gave us porta-johns because we had no toilets. So We were really putting it together. We got luckily mentioned in Entertainment Weekly during our campaign. So that was a random stroke of luck. It was all during Zach Braff's his campaign for Wish You Were Here.
Yeah.
All right.
That really propelled our Kickstarter forward. I mean,
without all that,
like a lot of people, because of the Entertainment Weekly article, came to our Kickstarter and donated to our film, which was great. I mean, we saw a huge spike in our profit, which was nice.
And Gareth, once Gareth got officially involved, that was it. The Kickstarter, was a success. But, the one thing, if your audience hasn't run a Kickstarter, is that the key is to be shameless.
Promotion,
no joke. That's the only advice I can give about running a campaign is you have a goal, your project has a goal, and
you got 1 month.
And you got 1 month to make that dream happen. And there will be lots of naysayers and a lot of people who don't care, and you just got to believe in it that much. That's why we did it a second time.
But we had a good friends and family behind us, so they, everyone kind of helped out. Everyone, down to our sound designer, let us use his house twice to shoot our zombie comedy video that we shot for the Kickstarter.
Yeah, and it is a hard one. And was all your funding raised from Kickstarter? Was that your full budget?
Most of it are
our pockets.
Yeah. Besides,
oh, sure, and whatever credit cards you could get, right?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Exactly. We kind of basically we knew we could shoot the film for like $20,000. So we figured, and that was on the high side. So we figured as long as we went out to Colorado with a little bit in our pocket, that we'd have enough to get us through that, and we did. We pinched pennies, and we and
our cast and crew knew what they were getting to. I mean, Gareth, knew exactly what he was getting into, and Gunnar and Rory, our good friend Rory, the only person who was cast after the fact was Dr. Marlowe, was Marshall, and that was also by design because we shot in August and then we did the Marlowe stuff after Michael and I were editing for, a few months. So, it's just you got to believe. That's the secret.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think after it was successful, we still had a lot more to do. I mean, we went to Montrose and we planned a zombie walk in the entire town of Montrose, and we had a lot of people in the town help us out. And it was a big event, and it was a fundraising event for the film. For to make awareness that we were coming to town and that we weren't a big Hollywood film and we were asking for your help. And whether it was, to work on it with us or to, give some funds so people can eat.
Donate. People gave it generators and they played zombies and they loved it. And there was people didn't want to leave. It would be like 3 o'clock in the morning. We're like, guys got to get off the mountain. We got to shoot at 8 a.m.
What'd you do to train your zombies? Did they have any sort of a zombie university?
We had obviously with The Walking Dead, they had their little Walking Dead school, and we kind of, Rob and I liked, we kind of liked the zombies more from The Walking Dead. We liked the Dawn of the Dead, and the new Dawn of the Dead were a little too fast. The 28 days later infected zombies. So we thought a meld between the Dawn of the Dead and The Walking Dead would
and we would hold a school, and we
just hold a school, and I had like a bunch of bullet points out to for the zombies, and we just taught them how to walk the way we wanted them to walk.
How's it been doing in the festival circuit, and how's your hunt for distribution?
Our festivals, we just got into over the weekend. We got into our 11th festival. Around the world, we played in Malta, a country I was barely aware of, in the middle of the I think sea or something.
Yeah,
like by Italy, I think, or Morocco.
Yeah, below Italy.
We played in Torremolinos, which is a very important film festival in Europe. We were one of the few. I think they have a lot of it's a Spanish language primarily. We're playing at the MAC in the Amazonas, the Amazon. We're playing in like a week or two. I think like next week we're playing in the Amazon. We were best feature at Horror Hound, Scaricon. We won awards at the RIP Hollywood Horror Festival. We were nominated for like 5 awards. We just ended up getting Best Director, Garrus won 2 awards for Best Actor, has been nominated like 3 times. So it's been very...
Yeah, the festival circuit's been very good to us right now.
Very good. So we know that's like where the fans are. And real quick, we also played it at a drive-in in August to show the town. And that was one of the greatest experiences for us. Is like 300 cars on a Saturday night were lined up. It was the first time, I think they said, since 1969, since the original True Grit, that theater, the Star Drive-In, was sold out in Montrose. So,
and True Grit, because some of that was filmed up there as well, correct?
Exactly. So they came out, the fans, the people came out. People came from like 2 hours away. There was a drive-in in Utah that was like, is it playing by us? So we realized the fans are there. So the festivals, that sort of circuit, I think that all sort of encompasses it. Just like the Phoenix Comic-Con this weekend. Like, that's part of the circuit for us. We're so excited. And Gareth hasn't even seen the movie yet. He told us today he could only sit through about half of it. It played in Wales over the weekend at the Wales Comic-Con. And he's like, I only saw a few minutes. He's like, I can't wait to watch it with you guys. So we're going to be in Phoenix. We're going to watch it, do a Q&A.
And distribution's coming along. Distribution, we're talking with a few companies right now. I don't think anything's going to happen till after the new year.
Yeah, but it's happening.
It's coming along nice.
Yeah, the more awareness. You know, there's a few things with zombie films and, you know, other sort of elements that, you know, take a little bit longer. But like once, you know, you see the movie and you understand like what was done, and, you know, most people don't even realize how little our budget was because, you know, at least if I could say it for myself, I don't think it looks like a low budget film. You know, like we've watched enough and analyzed enough. I mean, we know it's rough around the edges, but like that is sort of par for the universe.
Well, I absolutely. I think you guys have pulled together a nice tight infected story, and I had a ball watching it. And I'll tell you, I just we deeply appreciate you. You know, taking a break from the festival tour to talk to our podcast listeners. We sure appreciate you joining us.
We love it. We love you guys. Like we
hope more people can come out and see the film. And if anyone's out in Phoenix, you know, we hope they come out to the Phoenix Comic-Con.
Our show is typically dedicated to folks who can see the movies that we've already talked about. So that is more of a challenge for I Am Alone. But where can they find out more about it and find out where they can hopefully see when it's coming through their town?
Well, right now everything is we do everything on our website, IamAloneTheMovie.com, and then you can go to our Twitter handle. I update it all. I Am Alone Movie. That's the Twitter handle, and then Facebook is Abstract Forces. That's our company. That's our banner company. But that's where everything is. You can see, you know, trailers, and, you know, you can find out our festival listings, and, you know, we try to update it as often as we can, and just, you know, let the word spread. But, you know, we're really active on social media. You know, there's fans out there who, you know, wanted to play in their town. You know, email us. Let them. The more we can, you know, get awareness out there, you know, the more likely we can get it to play in your city. And if there's a drive-in, we love the drive-in.
So much the better.
It works perfectly. Yeah,
awesome.
That'd be great.
Well, thank you once again, Robert Palmer and Michael Weiss of I Am Alone. And I should say the sequel of I Am Alone, It Turns Out Maybe I Wasn't. Tell me you're going to use that. I want you to use that. You can have it with my...
Okay. Done.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks a lot.
I like those guys, Andy.
I do too, and you know, I wish them the best of luck. I think it's fantastic that they're out there pushing this film, I Am Alone. There's a lot of fun things going on with the film. It's a very fun and easy watch, and man, I hope I can get out to the Phoenix, the Fan Fest Comic-Con this weekend, so I can check it out and hang out with them.
Absolutely, you would be there is some definition of failure that you would be if you don't get there.
Ouch.
I'm just saying, it's not maybe the harshest form of failure. It's maybe failure with a lowercase f and a capital I.
Capital I with a star instead of a dot.
Capital I failure. If you can't go out and see these guys and say hi, very, very deep thanks to these guys for joining us. And I am really fascinated by the Kickstarter process. Hearing that part of the story really I think that's it's a fascinating journey. So great to see this film, and I hope that many, many more people get to see it. It was great fun.
Definitely.
We got a little bit of follow-up. Our dear friend Blott, Ben Lott, has come back to us with a pair of Blot spots, catching up a little bit over the holidays.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
The Wind Rises. I think I will take The Wind Rises. That is a great idea. The Wind Rises, dear friend of the show, Ben Lott, writes, is a gorgeous film, just stunning. The dream sequences in particular are absolutely captivating. In fact, I enjoyed the look of this film so much that it's the first Miyazaki movie in the series that I could see myself watching again. However, it still has a very slow pace, and I struggled to follow character motivations and therefore didn't form an emotional connection. I think this is just my personal taste getting in the way of fully appreciating what is a perfectly lovely film. Your rank, 73 out of 211. My rank, 112 out of 211. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a Miyazaki thing. I'd be curious to know how Ben does with other ones like that his friend had recommended, like Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke.
I imagine those are at the end of a very long list for Ben.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
How'd we do on Viridiana? Did we get any closer to a match?
Not at all. Not at all. No, it was, he said, I'll keep this short. I don't think I'm surprising anyone when I say Viridiana is not for me. I like movies that tell a story, but this one seems to be more focused on sending a message. Symbolism is also something that is largely lost on me, so I can't be impartial to this film because I did not enjoy watching it at all. Your rank 99 out of 212, my rank 198 out of 212.
Ouch.
Yeah, so it just didn't click with him. It's funny. I was putting the posters for Viridiana up on Pinterest, and I found this poster, and it was actually a really interesting poster because it has why this picture is recommended for mature adults. But it actually has this other little bit here that says, you may not like Viridiana. You may very well hate it. You may find it too shocking, but this we guarantee, Viridiana will strike your senses like nothing else you have ever seen in a theater. I thought that was really interesting, and I thought it actually played well to what Ben had to say, it is a film that is, doing something different, and maybe it just struck his senses. I mean, it seemed like a film that he recognized it was actually doing something. It just clearly is not the sort of film that he wants to watch, but I can at least appreciate that.
We got to throw in, he wasn't the only one. Our another dear friend of the show, Per Johansson from the Film Podden podcast, gave this film 1 out of 10 thorn wreaths.
That's right.
Awesome music in the beginning, much skin for an old movie, hideous and horrible, became uneasy when I saw this, boring with people who are mean to nice people. 1 out of 10 thorny wreaths. We're moving on.
Yes.
So thank you, gents, for writing in, and there you have it. We're done. Oh, and I should also say, because it has come up, Ben also reminded us that we had not posted our 2016 schedule of films, and those are done. We have locked them in, and by the time you hear this, they should be up, right?
Yes, they should.
All right, so head over to letterboxd.com, probably. It's missing a vowel somewhere.
Letterboxd, yes. .com/thenextreel.
All right, then you can see our 2016 movies, and let me tell you, we're very excited about it.
Oh, yes.
All right. Andy?
Yes?
How'd you like to make $14 the hard way?
Welcome to the Bushwood Country Club. The membership's exclusive.
You think I'd join this crummy snobatorium?
The help is outrageous. The madness is contagious.
Bad language, fooling around on the course, poor caddying.
But this whole place...
Caddyshack, starring Chevy Chase as Ty Webb.
Who is that disgusting man over there?
A sportsman who really knows how to score.
So, what brings you to this nape of the woods, neck of the wave? How come you're here?
Rodney Dangerfield as Al Servant, a big shot.
My dinghy's bigger than your whole boat!
With an even bigger mouth.
Hey, somebody step on a duck?
Ted Knight as Judge Smales, a man of dignity and a sense of fair play.
I've sentenced boys younger than you to the gas chamber.
Michael O'Keefe as Danny Noonan, a caddy who wants an education and gets one.
You take drugs, Danny?
Every day.
Good.
Cindy Morgan as Lacey Underall. She's got a bad reputation, and she's working hard to keep it.
You want to tie me up with some of your ties? Huh?
And Bill Murray as Carl Spackler.
Just a harmless squirrel, not a plastic explosive or anything, nothing to be worried about.
He's not crazy about gophers, but he is crazy.
License to kill gophers by the government of the United Nations.
And introducing Mr. Gopher as himself.
I said freeze, gopher!
Caddyshack. It's all about swinging.
Kiss me, you fool.
But not on the course.
Hey, you want to make $14 the hard way?
Playing a good game.
That's the ball. He got all of that one.
And talking a better one.
Hey, I should have stayed home and played with myself.
Taking shots.
That was a bum shot.
And making time.
We couldn't possibly think less of each other.
Controlling your drives.
Wow!
And losing your grip.
It is! You! Out!
Or the man's a menace.
Caddyshack. The comedy with...
Caddyshack, Andy, 1980. This kicks off our Harold Ramis film series. It's a short one, probably too short. This film was directed by Ramis and co-written by Harold Ramis, Brian Doyle-Murray, and Douglas Kenney in 1980. It is a film that is seriously, deeply close to my heart. Stars Chevy Chase, Rodney Dangerfield, Ted Knight, Michael O'Keefe, Bill Murray, Sarah Holcomb, Scott Columbie, Cindy Morgan. Oh, she's a charmer. Dan Resin is Dr. Beeper.
Henry Wilkinson.
Please. Anne
Bishop.
Ryerson. Of course, Brian Doyle-Murray as Lou Loomis in the Caddyshack himself. Peter Burkrot. It's just, it goes on and on. These kids who are all the caddies, they're just wonderful.
You forgot what the most important. I don't know if it's the most important, but Chuck wrote it as Mr. Gopher.
I did not actually forget that, but I can't wait to talk about Mr. Gopher. I was nervous going into this series because I think I've talked about it. I just recently watched National Lampoon's Vacation. We are doing that show as a part of this series. It's the third in our series, and I was not as crazy about it as I was when I first saw it, so I was nervous watching Caddyshack. I was hopeful that it would live up to what I remembered. And that I would be able to just let myself laugh at it. And true to form, Andy, I laughed a lot.
It's a hard film to step back at and look critically at. It's not a good story. It's pretty terrible. It's very meandering. It's very it doesn't really, nothing really ties together that strongly. But I think it was it Harold Ramis? I think it was Harold Ramis who actually compared it to a Marx Brothers film. And I thought that was actually a fairly apt comparison. I'm not a huge Marx Brothers fan, but I can kind of enjoy that kind of comedy sometimes. And this, to me, felt along that line where you had no real central character. You had a group of characters that you were kind of following on, I guess you could say, misadventures with a loose plot. And I think it actually works pretty well when you look at it that way. It's very funny. It's very quotable. And as as not critical as the film is, or as it's hard for me to be critical looking at it, I still found it just really fun and enjoyable.
I agree. For me, I think you're right to some extent that there is it I don't know, it can feel a little bit disjointed, but I actually think on this watch, I think it's better tied together than I at least had ever thought it was. This is Danny Noonan's search for guidance, right? He's like looking for his mentor, and the film kicks off perfectly. We see his horrible kind of home life, his just ridiculous home life with living in a house with 100 siblings.
Yeah, right.
And he's the one who kind of has it together. He's got his cookie jar for his college scholarship, and then he's off to meet his central mentor, Ty Webb. And it is what's so great about the humor in this movie, and the way that that conversation sets the tone for the rest of the film, is just how subdued the humor is. It's just a conversation between, gentlemen, so to speak. It doesn't get weird yet. It's just naturally funny, right? You can kind of imagine it being just sort of naturally funny. It's an incredibly long shot. It's from across the golf course. You're watching these guys walk across the golf course, and it does this slow build to the absurdity that is to come. And I think that it just really sets the tone well. It welcomes us to the film, and it introduces us to Chevy Chase's character is Ty Webb, who really represents Harold Ramis's id, right? I mean, he is the Harold Ramis part, if Harold Ramis was in this movie.
Right, yeah. It is kind of the
voice
Zen
of Harold Ramis, the Zen Buddhist, but too lazy to actually do anything.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what that character feels like. And it does feel Harold Ramis-ish. And, the film has already set up itself as something that's going to lend itself to absurdity. I mean, right at the beginning, we see, the nice natural beauty of the golf course, followed immediately by the gopher, as he, creates the runs all over the course that he does, and then he pops up and dances to Kenny Loggins' "I'm All Right." I mean, right away we're going, okay, this is going to be kind of an absurd movie, and I'm just going to go along with it. And I think you're right. I mean, it is essentially Danny's story, and it was much more of Danny's story before they cut a lot and changed a lot with the improv and everything. I mean, there was a lot more to Danny, and I think especially the relationship that Danny has with Maggie, that got drastically chopped through the editing process.
Well, and I think casting, these bigger, more experienced names, improvisational names, and frankly Rodney Dangerfield. I mean, these are the guys they ended up giving star billing to, and that really took away from what I think originally was intended to be a story of the caddies.
Exactly. Right, a film about this group of caddies, based largely on kind of Brian Doyle-Murray's growing up and being a caddy at a golf course, and just kind of the experiences that he had and kind of what that life was like. That was the initial idea for it, and I think it's okay that it changed, and I think it was important that in order to actually make a successful change, that it actually did have such strong improvisational actors like Chevy Chase and Bill Murray and Rodney Dangerfield on board to actually help kind of create the comedy that the script needed.
Yeah, that is one of the things I think would, obviously the improv stands out in this film, but one of the things I think that really makes the improv stand out is it doesn't feel all that much like improv. The improv is done so brilliantly in character that you sort of can't tell what's in the script and what wasn't. And I find it interesting in particular when you compare characters like Bill Murray, whose character was largely just, the improvisational. I mean, it was just largely written on set, to a character like Rodney Dangerfield, who had to have every period, every comma in place for all of his lines, because this was essentially his first feature film.
Or Ted Knight, who completely was against improv. He wanted it to be scripted. I mean, Rodney Dangerfield was all about improv, but he had to come up with the jokes kind of ahead of time, work through it, and then have it written down so that he could nail it, right? Ted Knight wanted the script to be the way that it was. And, I mean, improv doesn't mean you just show up on set and wing it. I mean, there is some of that, but you still kind of rehearse it and you practice it with the director and you try to figure out what's going to work and what's not. And I think there's a lot of that. Now, I do think some of it on set was actually just trying to find it. And I think that it sounded like Harold Ramis was saying that sometimes, in any other movie, you'd be doing like 10 takes to get the actors to get their lines right. In this particular case, it was 10 takes to get the actors to figure out what their lines were actually going to be.
Right.
And so I think there was a lot of actual improvisation happening on set, which drove Ted Knight nuts. And like you said, Rodney Dangerfield, he wanted to have the improv, but he wanted to work it out ahead of time. So it's an interesting blend of different types of working styles. Luckily, they did find a way to actually blend it together.
I think so. One of the things he said, Ramis said, was always trust improvisation. Of course, we plan what we're going to do, but improvisation allows us to create gold material almost instantly. And I think you can see this with the group of actors that he surrounded himself with over the course of his films. And many of his films have obviously a lot of the same actors, from Bill Murray and Brian Doyle-Murray, and I think Brian Doyle-Murray is in or with most of his films. I think the most of them, when you look at this group, like Chevy Chase and John Candy and Dan Aykroyd and
7. He worked on 7 of the projects with Harold Ramis, and they do a great job. I mean, I think that it's a great group of people here, and I really, this is a good example of, I think, what you can do in the editing. Because, I mean, this film was, the way that they shot it, it ended up being well over 4 hours in length when they first edited this together. And Ramis admitted that the editor that they had was a relatively young editor and was really kind of doing everything that he wanted them to, both he and Dennis Douglas. He was really doing everything that they were asking, and that ended up creating a very long film, like 4 hours some, that wasn't very funny. They were putting all the jokes in, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. So they actually had to get the producers to bring on a very experienced editor to really kind of hack it down and find the right way to tell these jokes. And so even though it did work, it still took the right editor just a good amount of time to find the way to actually blend it all together into something that actually worked. And it took the addition of this gopher character.
So the gopher character, apparently they tried to cast an actual trained sort of animal. Yes. Like a real animal that predictably didn't go well, and obviously there were no computer generated effects that could have done this at the time. And I was blown away. I can't believe I did not know this. The guy responsible for creating the gopher is the same guy responsible for the original lightsabers, responsible for the X-Wing TIE fighter battles, no other than John Dykstra. That is bananas.
It's crazy. John Dykstra had been with ILM, and then there's a little bit of a battle between him and Lucas because he worked on, after Star Wars, he went and worked on Battlestar Galactica. Yeah. And Lucas kind of, had a big lawsuit against them for plagiarizing Star Wars, and
we got the gopher.
And John Dykstra ended up creating his own company, and hence we have the gopher. Yeah, he didn't work on Empire Strikes Back.
It's possibly his seminal work.
Possibly. Forget those Oscars he got for Star Wars. This is it.
I don't care about that. Yeah, it's actually funny to hear Chevy Chase talk about him. When I was watching some of these interviews with Chevy Chase, who I think it's difficult to get a candid moment with Chevy Chase, but there are two things that will cause him to sober up and not joke. And one is, I hate the gopher. I absolutely hate the gopher. When people think Caddyshack, they think this stupid gopher and that song, and they don't think about all of the incredible talent that was on screen, which I think is a bridge too far. Chevy, you were great. The gopher was just funny. And the other thing is his relationship with Bill Murray, which was touch and go. I think over the course of their has been touch and go over the course of their relationship or their careers. But that gopher was a divisive and yet symbolic of the success of the film.
Yeah, they needed something to kind of help tie things together a little bit. I mean, initially it was just one scene. My understanding is it was the scene when it takes the ball and the flag, and Dangerfield says, "That kangaroo just ate my ball." That was it, and it was one of the assistants with a little puppet, and basically kind of reached his hand up, grabbed the ball, and pulled it, and that was all there was. Luckily, I can't remember who it was. One of the producers, I believe, said, we gotta. This is going to be something that we can actually use to help tie this together more. And they got Dykstra to actually make this gopher that like had little ears that moved, and it really gave it a personality, and it became this element that became a great foil to Bill Murray, who really had a chance to expand his part. And it created this kind of this indelible character that it really is a nonsense character, but it does help ground the film in the absurdity. And it does kind of help tie it together as we kind of see this gopher right at the beginning, and we see him kind of going through the film. We see how at the beginning, Ted Knight's character sees the gopher and gets all upset about that. That ends up introducing us to Bill Murray's character, and of course, then he ties in at the very end and how the whole thing kind of blows up. And it's a great thing that really just helps build the climax of the film and makes it really fun.
It's a great way to introduce kids to grown-up comedies, don't you think? And I say that only half off the cuff, right? Because this is the first grown-up sort of ribald comedy that I ever really wanted to see. That I saw that the cover of the VHS, right? I mean, it came out, and I was too young to see it. It took me a while to actually be able to see it because it was, I was too young in 1980 to see this film, and by the time I could see it, it was the thing that I wanted Dad to show me. I think we had it on Betamax.
That's funny.
And it was that gopher. I was like, I got to see the thing with the gopher. I don't even know what it's all about, but I've got to see it. And so this was my first sort of sex comedy, kind of that kind of teen romp. This movie is kind of an interesting part of Ramis's career, right? His career making films, because one of the things that I think is so interesting about his work is that he starts out very much as the renegade comic. He's trying to sort of put rebellion in the mouths of these smart ass characters, and this obviously kind of spun out of his SCTV days, his college days, his early writing. But you can trace his transformation as a man over the course of his transformation as a filmmaker, leading almost directly from Caddyshack and Stripes through Ghostbusters to Analyze This and Groundhog Day, where you see him just really mature and actually using comedy as a way to tell some much more sophisticated stories about growing up. And so I'm wondering how you reflect on that angle of Caddyshack, on how well this tells a story of kind of the story of young people and what they aspire to by the role models that the adults are displaying for them in this film.
Certainly, I mean, having come off of things like Meatballs before this and National Lampoon's Animal House, there is something to be said for kind of that place in his life as he kind of was writing these, and then Caddyshack, Stripes, Vacation. It is kind of an interesting way to kind of look at how he was kind of growing and kind of moving through life as he was telling these different stories. Some of it is just like, I think, you look at a lot of other stuff in his career, Back to School, Club Paradise, Armed and Dangerous. Some of it I don't think fits quite as well in that, but I do think if you're looking at stuff that he's really focusing on directing, I think that there's an interesting element to that I think that you can say is in there.
Talking about the kids, because the kids I think get a little bit short shrift in Caddyshack, right? And and some of the funniest moments are at the as a result of the kids being kids on this golf course. And I think what's so interesting when you look at it is that I think the reason the film works for me right now is because they ended up cutting as much as they did and giving us just the right amount of absurdity from the kids.
The kids are what I have the most problems with in this film. Everything relating to the pool scene, like it's that to me is just kind of like, it's kind of comical nonsense. The water ballet, the duty I always think is kind of funny, but why does everybody jump into the pool with their clothes on? I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that
because they only have 15 minutes.
Yeah, I know. But the whole thing just seems a little absurd to me. I don't know. I don't get into their story as much. Watching this again, Ted Knight came out as the person that I most enjoyed watching. He is so much fun to watch, and watching his balance between being high strung and kind of being kind of that wearing that perfect facade, I think is just so much fun. And I just love watching him and the way that he would react with Spaulding when Spaulding would do something.
Double turds.
Just like, get your foot off the boat. Everything about him was just spot on perfect. And I could have just watched more and more of him, especially as he was dealing with Rodney Dangerfield. Like, the relationships between the adults were really what I was enjoying. And I found myself wishing that, or just appreciating that they cut so much of the caddies out, because I don't think their story is actually very interesting.
Well, that's that's exactly my point, right? And that's why I think I appreciate the story of the caddies, because as an adult and a grown man, I look back at that and I think, it's easy for me to supplant my own memories with the experience that I would have wanted as a teenager at the golf course at Bushwood.
I don't know. I see what you're saying. I'm just saying that I would have been fine if the caddies weren't in it at all.
Oh, I don't think it would have worked. I don't think it would have worked. I think you need
don't
the balance.
either. I don't know.
You are showing your age, is what you're showing. As an old get off my lawn. You are the Ted Knight of this conversation.
Maybe I am.
I am the Danny Noonan.
But it's not that I wouldn't get rid of. Gosh, I don't know. I'm torn. I like Danny. I like elements of his story throughout this. It's just like, maybe it's just the pool scene. Maybe it is just the pool scene that I just find to be kind of a bridge too far for me.
I can't believe that. That is like the pinnacle of absurdity in the film, and I think the fact that it's in the voice of the kids, it just totally works for me. That the scene, first of all, that the scene is broken up. It's split between the water aerobic, or the synchronized swimming sequence, and the duty sequence with the perfect dive from Cindy Morgan. I think is just, it's just pitch perfect sort of sex comedy, right? Where everybody stops and the glasses come down on the nose, and it reminds me of everything of my angst-ridden youth. And of course, then the duty is the evacuation of the pool, and the punchline to that joke is 2 scenes later when Bill Murray takes a bite of it is awesome. It is awesome, and that wouldn't work if we didn't get to see how they actually use the pool.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just torn on it, I guess. Maybe it's just the water ballet and just I don't know. I agree with you. You're making me agree with you, and I don't like it.
Well, I am a fan of the kids. I vote for kids. I appreciate kids, and Andy, of course, is defunding the kids.
Get off my lawn.
What we're saying. What we're saying is canceling programs for kids. That's right. Andy.
I really enjoy the grown-ups. I think that it's a great bunch, from the ones who are playing golf. Ted Knight, I already talked about. Rodney Dangerfield is just fantastic. He's so over the top and obnoxious in all the right ways. It just is so strange to watch him, and he just seems like he was born to do this sort of insanity. And he did. I mean, you watch Back to School or anything else that he did on screen, and it is the same sort of character. He works really well at it.
Yeah, he's hand to glove. I mean, he found this guy, this voice, and really leveraged it well. And I think what works really so well for me is that, particularly for these central characters, they match really well. Each of the kids kind of has an adult character, and we watch their stories kind of unravel in parallel. And what's so interesting about it to me is that it's the adults who end up doing the thing that is most juvenile, right? They solve their differences through by doing this thing that is illegal and really just downright dumb. It's the adults who end up doing things that are ultimately ridiculously destructive, right? It's this adult who destroys the club by blowing it up, and I think that's one of the messages that I liked so much about it is that the youth, even though they fight and they're rambunctious and they do drugs, ultimately they're the ones who kind of have a clear head.
Yes.
You hate the kids so much that's what I get.
Your point makes sense.
All right, what else is on your list?
Ted Knight, I already said he's just my favorite part. He's just so funny. I mean, it's interesting because he did not have a huge movie career. He really is a TV guy. I grew up with him in Too Close for Comfort, and of course, everyone probably remembers him in the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I don't know if everybody does, but he was kind of a key part in that show. And his movie career, pretty limited. In fact, I think this was actually his last film, and then he ended up passing away 6 years later from cancer that he had for quite a while that he was fighting it.
Yeah, Ted Knight was fantastic. Apparently, he was very much the character that he played. He carried a comb. That's right. That is the anecdote from Chevy Chase. He carried a comb. And
did not like his hair getting mussed up.
Did not like his hair getting mussed up, and combed his hair 20 times a day.
Yes,
according to Ramis.
I guess Chevy Chase actually mussed his hair once, or I think it was in one of the shots when he was just like, "My father never liked you." That bit, he musses his hair, and I guess that was. Ted was not very happy with Chevy Chase for doing that.
He was absolutely terrific in this film.
Yes.
I think you mentioned the relationship he has with, obviously his nephew, but for me the big, the pinnacle scenes for Ted Knight were with Chevy Chase. I mean, his conversations, his wit with Ty Webb were, absolutely perfect joke writing. When you look at just the straight man role.
I say he's that way with everybody. I mean, I think he's so great with Michael O'Keefe playing Danny.
Yeah.
The bits where he's just like, he's, I'm going to be doing my, christening my new sloop, and then he's just like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm free. He's like, oh, why don't you come on over and mow my lawn then?
That's such an interesting thing because he bounces back between being kind of the goofy character and the straight man, because he's definitely not the straight man with Danny, and yet he is the conservative bull with Ty Webb, and I think he just is great every time he's on screen.
And Michael O'Keefe, I think, is great as Danny. I think he brings a lot of the. Just what you were talking about as far as the youth, I think he brings that to the screen. And regardless of any problems I had with kind of the presentation of the youth in the film, I do think Michael O'Keefe has a nice balance of kind of playing that opposite these older characters, whether it's Ty or the judge or any of them. I mean, I think that he actually kind of ended up being the perfect actor to carry that off.
Isn't he funny to watch his career since this film?
Yeah, he is so all over the place. It's amazing. And this movie was coming off of an Oscar nomination for supporting actor opposite Duvall in The Great Santini.
Yeah, that's right. God, it was right after, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was a year later. And then, he's just been all over the place, man. He is just, and he's just everywhere. He's one of those actors who's just in everything. It's just crazy. I mean, he was in, Michael Clayton a few years ago, for Pete's sake.
Yeah. Crazy. Hot Chick with Rob Schneider.
Oh, yeah.
He brought that really straight youth character. I don't know what to do with my life, and I am stuck in absolute absurdity. How am I possibly going to get out? Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was great.
No, he's good.
Who else? Anybody else on your list?
Bill Murray. I mean, he is Bill Murray, and considering that the character of Carl was non-existent on the page. I mean, didn't have a single line in the script. I mean, he ended up creating a character that, I mean, everybody's pretty quotable, but I feel like there's nothing that comes out of his mouth that's just not something you can quote from this film,
Absolutely. The number of scenes, to hear Harold Ramis talk about it, the scenes that were just, as you say, written on set, the scenes that were the iconic scene between Bill Murray and Chevy Chase. And this was one of the things that, to hear the producer talk about the film was this idea that, here are these two guys who were, really the biggest names in the film, Bill Murray and Chevy Chase, that they, when they went into filming, they didn't have a scene together. Like they were never on screen at the same time.
Right.
They went to lunch with Harold Ramis and Doug Kenney, and they wrote the scene, and then they went back, locked themselves in the room, and shot the scene. And that is the fantastic play 36 holes, get stoned to the bejesus belt on it that night sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, the whole thing is quotable. Pool, pond. I use that every day. Somebody in my life
Pond
gets
for you.
pool or pond.
A lot of these guys actually all kind of came up together in their careers. Harold Ramis, Chevy Chase, and Brian Doyle-Murray, and Bill Murray, like they all kind of were in the same circles, and some of them came from
Second
City, and then they all kind of ended up. It seemed like they kind of got funneled into National Lampoon, and they all were kind of working with Douglas Kenney, and he's one of the founders of National Lampoon. And they were kind of doing the National Lampoon's radio hour, and they kind of got a lot of their comedy training there. They actually, when National Lampoon's Animal House was getting put together, they actually wrote the role of Otter for Chevy Chase, but he actually was, at that point, he was finished his first season of Saturday Night Live and was trying to do something a little more serious. So went to work on Foul Play, but after that they did end up working together on Caddyshack. Lucky for all of us, because that gave us the wonderful, strange, just I don't know, zen performance of Chevy Chase in this film, which is just so much fun.
Okay. What else do we have? Anything else hot on your list as we look through these people? There's so many people.
Yeah.
So many people.
Yeah, there are a lot. I mean, Cindy Morgan, geez, I mean, she was easy to fall in love with. She didn't do much other than this and Tron. I mean, she actually has done a bit of things, but those, I guess, are the things that she's mostly well known for.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah Holcomb, who was Maggie, I mean, geez, she did Animal House and a few other films, and Caddyshack was her last film. So a couple years of working in films, and then she was out. So
all the same kind of films too. I mean, right. I haven't seen Walk Proud, but judging by the cover,
or Mr. Mike's Mondo Video.
Yeah, right.
Henry Wilcoxon was of anybody on the cast. I mean, he has been around forever. I mean, he started acting in the 30s, and just one of those guys who had been in many, many things. He plays the bishop, the guy who's out with Bill Murray out in the driving rain, trying to get that last 9 in before it really starts raining. But geez, I mean, he had been in just so many films.
This was also toward the end of his career.
Yeah, this was toward the end of his career. He only did a few more films afterward, but I mean, he was a guy who really kept busy.
Mrs. Miniver. He was in Mrs. Miniver, Greatest Show on Earth. Cecil B. DeMille. Look at that, Cecil B. DeMille.
Yeah, 10 Commandments.
10 Commandments.
Yeah. The last person I was really going to just mention or talk about was Douglas Kenney, and just this quite a story that he had. I mean, he was one of these guys who ended up founding National Lampoon, as I talked about, and they wrote some very funny things like Board of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings parody, and the National Lampoon's what was the yearbook that they put out? The 1964 high school yearbook parody. And I mean, you could still get those through Amazon. Just things that were very funny, very popular. And he had a really good way of kind of finding that humor in things, and just spoofing it. He was producing this film, and I from what I read, he really kind of felt a little affronted, I guess, that he wanted to produce it, but the studio wanted to, or I guess felt more safe having kind of a real producer on board, and so they had why am I blanking on the producer's name?
It's Peter Gruber and John Peters,
right? Those two. Why he was feeling kind of affronted that those other producers were kind of doing the work, and just he didn't feel as connected like he did on Animal House, and he got into. Well, everybody was really doing drugs on the making of this film. I mean, there's a lot of drugs and drinking and just wild parties and everything. But he really ended up feeling just kind of distant a little bit, and he drank a lot. And at one of the press screenings, when they first showed this, he actually like went off on all the people in attendance, and then he passed out. And shortly after the film premiered, like about a month later, Chevy Chase, who was one of his really good friends, had taken him to Hawaii to try to kind of help him kind of calm down and just kind of get through everything and get him out of this depression that he was in. And then when Chevy Chase had left, he ended up going and killing himself. I mean, no one really knows if he killed himself, but he went up onto a cliff, and all that was left on the top was his shoes, and his body was found several days later in some of the rocks down at the bottom. And people don't know if he was up there and he slipped, if he was going up there and he did kill himself. Nobody really knows, but it's a very tragic story.
Young.
Yeah, very young.
33.
Yeah.
Wow. And yet, he managed to get his name on Caddyshack 2.
Yes, lucky him.
So in terms of, achieving your aspirations.
There you go. Well, I mean, the nice thing about Caddyshack, even though he felt it was a failure, I mean, he didn't like the cut. He didn't like the gopher, what they did with that. When it was released, I mean, the critics just really railed on it. Nobody seemed to like it. But it ended up being a really popular film. It did well for itself. And it's grown in popularity. I mean, it's really kind of this comedy status that it's achieved now, especially in the sports world and the golf world in particular. I think Tiger Woods says it's his favorite film. It's a very popular film, and people just love this film, and he never got to see that. And so that's I think where a lot of the tragedy lies.
Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah. Like I said, this is a film that has really influenced people. I mean, there's some people, there's a book out, the Book of Caddyshack, everything you ever wanted to know about the greatest movie ever made. People really think that this film is end all be all. I mean, Kenny Loggins still sells gopher dolls at his concerts. I mean, you can go to Amazon and search for Caddyshack, not just the movie, but you can find Bushwood Country Club golf hats and apparel. You can find gopher head covers for your clubs. You can find golf balls with the Bushwood logo on them. I mean, there's just so much stuff out there that is golf related. And I mean, this movie did a lot of things for the golf world. So I think a lot of people in the golf world are very thankful that this movie made it a much more fun and enjoyable sport to kind of watch and participate in.
It certainly, I certainly find it inspiring. And I think this is what got us sort of writing. I kind of attribute Caddyshack to what certainly what got me writing sketch comedy in college was just I wonder how I could distill from these rules or distill from this film some rules that would define what's funny and start practicing it. I mean, this is an inspirational film, certainly in that regard for many.
Indeed, it is.
How did it do? You said it didn't start as well as it maybe should have.
Yeah, I mean, it cost about $6 million to make, which is about just under $17 million in today's dollars. Decent sized budget. It ended up grossing domestically. I couldn't find anything internationally, but domestically, it ended up grossing about just under $40 million. So, I mean, it did well for itself. It wasn't like a huge box office draw when it first came out. And like I said, the critics certainly didn't care for it. But it did find its audience, and it grossed just under $40 million, which in today's dollars is just under $113 million. So all told, it ended up doing pretty well for itself and making about $970,000 per finished minute in adjusted dollars.
Not bad.
Not too bad.
Not bad. I say we rank it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel and sign up for an account and friend us and start with Caddyshack because that'll make everything else easier.
There you go.
Yeah. What's our rule? What's our rule? How are you approaching Caddyshack as you rank these other movies? Rank it against other movies.
Well, I mean, not critically, certainly. I guess it's just, it's a fun film. it's not something that I put on really too often. So I guess I'm just kind of, my rule will be, a lot of it I think is going to boil down to kind of an enjoyment factor. But I mean, if it comes up against, a really well-made film, I'm going to have to take that into account for them. And, kind of, it may lose to some more serious films that I may not watch as often, but I feel are just stronger filmmaking.
I'm just going to go by which movie makes me laugh more. So okay. Let's roll the dice.
That's a dangerous game to play. All right, Caddyshack or The Bad Seed?
The Bad Seed was hysterical.
Caddyshack.
I'm Caddyshack on this one.
Indeed. Caddyshack or Sleepless in Seattle. Now, see, here I'd say Sleepless in Seattle. It doesn't make me laugh more, but it's a better film.
I know you love it.
It's a great film.
It is, but I don't know. When I compare it to Caddyshack, I don't think I can do it.
Are we going to rock, paper, scissors?
I might have to rock, paper, scissors this stupid thing.
Wow. All right.
Here we go.
Let's do it. One, two, three.
Scissors.
Paper. Oh, man.
Wow.
Dang.
That was right. You know what? I just had to be the paper.
Be the paper, Danny. Yeah. Be the paper, Pete.
Be the paper.
All right. Caddyshack takes it. Caddyshack or The Innocents?
Again, comedy to comedy. I'm going to say The Innocents.
Yeah, The Innocents. Thank you. Caddyshack or Moneyball, Pete? This one's all you.
Oh dear. I'm going to have to go Moneyball.
Yes, indeed. Caddyshack or The Social Network?
In terms of, if we base it on, true stories, degrees of truth, I found I'm probably going to have to go with The Social Network.
There you go. Caddyshack or Scarlet Street?
Oh, jeez.
Scarlet Street.
This is a terrible game. Whoever came up with this stupid thing? Scarlet Street.
Caddyshack or Out of the Past? Out of the Past?
Yeah, Out of the Past.
Me. All right.
Jeez.
I know. It's rough. Caddyshack or The Curious Case of Benjamin Button?
Benjamin Button.
Here I would say Benjamin Button, but I would actually say Caddyshack is definitely the more fun film to watch.
You can say that about all of them.
No, I couldn't.
The more fun film?
Well, more fun, yeah. But I mean, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, you really have to be in the mood to watch that movie.
Okay.
I actually am going to vote for Caddyshack here, believe it or not.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I will take that. I will absolutely
I'm surprising
take that.
myself, but there you go.
I can't believe that.
I can't either. 52 out of 213, Pete.
Well, it's definitely too low. I saw this going into, I saw this as a new top fiver, but okay.
That would be hard to get up to the top five for this. It's fun.
This was fun, and this, I really enjoyed reading up on Harold Ramis and his career, and I think that's the part that, insofar as Caddyshack, it is what it is. It's a really funny movie with some incredible performances. But I think for me, the big lesson out of this and will continue to be is how interesting this guy's career is, and how he used comedy and comedy writing to establish his own voice in the mouths of a select few other actors who can pull him off so well. I think he's just great, and I look forward to our next film, which is
the next one we're going to be going to see is Stripes.
What do you think about it? Are you nervous about this one?
I don't know. I mean, this is the one that I've never really seen. I've only seen bits and pieces of it, so it's hard for me to say. Now, this is an interesting one because, I mean, Caddyshack, he was a co-writer on and he directed. This one he is acting in, and he just worked as writer, and Ivan Reitman directed this one. Mm-hmm. So it'll be curious I'm curious to see how I like this one.
Me too.
Yeah. What is your star rating for old Caddyshack? I mean, you're talking about top 5 of our list here. Is this a 5-star one for you?
I mean, yeah, it's on a list of comedies. Yes, it's absolutely a 5-star comedy for me. But against, Network?
That's right.
This
is the hard part.
It doesn't quite hit 5 stars for me, so I'm going to give it 4.5 stars because... No, it's a 5-star comedy for me. It means it's 5 stars are equal, Andy. Stop trying to monkey around here. Star's a star. Give it all 5.
You're saying it, man. You're saying it. Okay.
I had to convince myself. It took me a little bit. A star's a star.
Star's a star. Well, I'm at 3.5, so we'll balance that out.
3.5.
I know. It's a 3.5 film that I can still really enjoy. I have a hard time giving it.
It's because you hate teenagers.
Exactly. Get off my lawn.
All right. I got to go to bed.
All right. I'm going to go out and do some night putting.
Okay. Okay, so you know how Amazon, usually people are really upset about the transfer.
Yes.
That's a perennial favorite that it needs to be. The transfers, the studio should be ashamed of themselves. Well, in this case, it turns out there are 2 versions of this film. And here is Karen Kincaid writes, I did not realize that there are 2 versions, a clean version, which they show on TV, and a R-rated version. We bought this film to show my 96-year-old mother-in-law. Well, boobs were flashing, and the language was not good. My husband was really embarrassed that I had bought this for him to show her. I guess I didn't properly read what this version was. Oh, well, this did not help me earn any good mother-in-law points.
That's just fantastic.
Awesome. Although, 96-year-old mother-in-law, she's probably seen it all anyway.
That's right.
Give me a break.
Back in the day.
That was nothing compared to what I was doing in my youth.
What do you got?
Well, JB says, gave it a 1 star. Was Bill Murray supposed to be mentally challenged? They never said, and the ending was very abrupt. Plus, couldn't tell who was hooking up with who. Too many blondes. Yeah, okay.
I actually think that was the tagline on the DVD. Caddyshack, too many blondes.
I love it.
Oh, well. Thanks, Amazon.
It is hard to believe we have been having in-depth conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
Season 5 had some great adaptations, like our Meryl Streep Oscar-nominated performances series. We covered adaptations like Kramer vs. Kramer, Sophie's Choice, and The French Lieutenant's Woman.
It's a real Sophie's Choice between those books. You see what I did there?
Yeah. And I don't think it's quite at the level of a real Sophie's Choice.
We also did Snowpiercer for our Bong Joon-ho series, adapted from the French graphic novel Le Transpersonnage. Man, I love that movie.
We had our 2-part 1939 series that included adaptations like Gone with the Wind, Ninotchka, The Women, and The Hound of the Baskervilles.
A number of those 1939 movies, like Goodbye, Mr. Chips, also tied into our recent 1940 Academy Award Best Picture nominee series.
Our Naughty Children horror series had creepy adaptations like The Bad Seed, Village of the Damned, The Innocents, and Children of the Corn.
For our Hayao Miyazaki series, we talked about his take on Lupin III with The Castle of Cagliostro, plus his own The Wind Rises.
Some great listener choice picks too, Viridiana and The Great Escape.
And for our David Mamet Wright series, The Verdict, The Untouchables, and Glengarry Glen Ross.
Plus, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang from our Shane Black series, adapted from Brett Halliday's novel, Bodies Are Where You Find Them.
Dive into the sources for all of these at thenextreel.com/originals.
Every book you buy helps support the show. Check out thenextreel.com/originals today. and find your next read.